Welcome to Staffing Stories, hosted by Andy Moss. Andy has been in the staffing industry for over 25 years, first as a recruiter, then eventually an account manager and business owner. This is the podcast where we sit down with fellow staffing owners to get the real stories of the successes, the failures, and the lessons learned along the way.
Welcome back to Staffing Stories. I'm Andy Moss, your host, and it's going to be an incredible conversation we're going to have today with Miss Lola Lass from ADEETA Staffing down in Louisiana, more southern than me, which is I'm usually the most southern company, but this is great. So welcome to Staffing Stories.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit, just introduce yourself, your company, kind of, where you're coming from and what kind of staffing you do.
Okay. So ADEETA Corporate Staffing was started 25 years ago. I'm Lola Lass, and I am the person who started it. And I'm on my third business partner. If that tells you anything, I'm a control freak, right? But the company, what we do is we specialize in administrative, accounting, HR, and marketing. Those are really our four spaces, but we do it on a higher level no matter what the position is. So if it's a front desk person, we won't take anything that's just entry level, low wage. And New Orleans is a B market, and we don't have any large employers here to speak of. So we work with a lot of small to mid-sized companies, and what we specialize in is what everybody says they specialize in is relationships, right? Yeah. But so we like to go on site and get to know the customer. And then once we understand who you are, whether you need a front desk person or an HR person or someone in marketing, we already get who you are and what was going to work in your space. And so we have a broad scope of what kind of positions we'll fill. And just to let you know, it is a lifestyle business because it's certainly not a smart business model if you want to scale.
It's tough to scale. I mean, I think everybody out there wants to scale, and having the option of creating a lifestyle business, and I'll look at Enforce, those are two distinct paths. So how did you just say, you know what, that's the way we're going to do it, or did it just kind of happen that way over the years?
It was intentional. I mean,
okay.
It did happen that way, but it was intentional at a variety of different times. I mean, 25 years is a long time. But before this company, I actually owned another staffing company that I started with a partner. And after 9 years, I sold out to her. And the reason we split was she wanted to be one of the biggest staffing companies, and I just wanted to be the best. And those do not have to be mutually exclusive, but that's a hard nut to crack if you actually want to try to grow quickly and still maintain, your excellence, because you got to growing pains kind of a thing. So we split, and the reason I started the first company was family reasons. The reason I started the second company and kept it small was family reasons. I'm somebody who is a quality of life kind of person. I live in the present. I think about the future, but I live in the present.
Yeah.
So my personal philosophy, and the one that my company's had, especially since Hurricane Katrina, was celebrate each day. We find something to celebrate every day. And I've literally had a glass of champagne every single day since Hurricane Katrina when we came back.
So for listeners, you can't, you have to be hiding under a rock to not know what Katrina was, but walk me through that, time period in your life in the staffing business. What did that mean to it? Just give everybody a sense of that, please.
Sure. So Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005. We had never evacuated before, and I'm a lifer here. I was born and raised here, went away to college, came back. We'd never left before, but we had a bad storm a couple months before where we lost power for 3 days. And when you lose power in New Orleans in June, you get really crabby. So we decided next time one was coming, let's just get out of town, stay where there's air conditioning, and then we'll come back. Well, when we left with supplies for 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And we came back 2 months later. So we were lucky. We didn't lose our house. We lost, some things in we have a partial basement. But anyway, everybody left town because eventually we had a mandatory evacuation, and it disrupted everything. This is 2005. This is not today where we're sitting here doing a podcast. in two
The
different
zoo.
cities. Wait, in two different houses. I mean, that would never have happened back then. So when we left, trying to get back to, first of all, worrying about all your temps. Where are they? Are they okay? Of course, they're not working because nobody's allowed to work, but you still need to pay them for the hours they'd already worked. Now you're trying to track down customers and get authorization for hours. And you're doing all of this over the telephone. We did have email. We did use email back then, but that is the time when all of the boomers, baby boomer generation, we all learned how to text.
Yep.
That's when it started because it was the only way we could reach people.
Really?
So,
how many
ahead.
temps did you have or were trying to manage at that time? Get a sense.
Yeah, again, we're small, but maybe 50 to 75.
But which is an undertaking with 10 besides that. And then the managers on top of it. Anybody who's tried to collect time cards after a holiday understands the stress of that. But after a hurricane, I can only imagine.
And the only phone numbers we had for clients were work numbers. We didn't collect cell numbers back then. That was not how people, that was private thing. So it was very tough. When we came back to New Orleans, there was no communication. I mean, there was no power in the city. So, I mean, you couldn't use those kind of communication tools. We actually got those foam board signs that stand on wire bases like they do for political campaigns. Yeah.
Yep.
Put our private cell phone numbers in the corner of a busy intersection near the Home Depot and the Walmart. That was the only places open. And that's how we got back in business.
So did you do the same type staffing before and after it, or did you? I mean, did it kind of create like, hey, we're all going to jump in and do cleanup staffing? I mean,
nope. Again, I'm a quality of life kind of person, and that just was not the space we were going to. We have one customer that was a financial institution. They're a regional bank, and they called and said, I had gotten them my cell number already, but they had called and said, can you get me 50 people? And we said, you want my honest answer? No.
Yeah.
We don't know 50 people's phone numbers, but we can get you 35. I said, call the other ones out to somebody else. And that's what happened. They got us back in business. We staffed their operations center, which of course has now been moved out of New Orleans because it's too risky. But anyway, it was crazy.
I think anybody that has owned a staffing agency for any period of time had to learn how to adapt. I can look back. I've done engineering, IT, professional, and one season IT is going great. One season professional services going great, or a big account, like a big whale account comes through, you take care of it. Whale accounts go away. And so you have to be thick skinned to be able to roll with the punches.
And I've gone through each one of those series that you just talked about. When I opened ADEETA, we did IT staffing, and that was in 1998. Guess what happened in 2000?
That's correct. The .com boom.
And in 1999, I saw all of our local businesses hiring people full-time, bringing in all these contract people, and I knew their budgets were going to be tapped out. So January 1, 2000, we started professional staffing as part of our line. Absolutely.
So you're talking about family. I know my family is extremely important with me, and we've talked to other guests that, why they do this. Explain to me your family situation, like, why they are so important and what kind of impact they've made as an owner.
Well, as a business owner, the first time I started a staffing company, I had been managing a company for a man who lived in Mississippi. And I ran this staffing company here, and he a headhunter's office in Mississippi. But I called him and said, okay, I need you to transfer some of the money, our profit, back into the account. So I got to do a marketing campaign. He said, well, I spent it. And I said, he goes, I know, it's just been really, it was after the oil crash in the late 80s, now here we are looking at 1989, and it was 1988. And I said, Charlie, I'm going to have to do something. And he said, yeah, I understand. And I said, I'm 4 months pregnant here.
Yeah.
Not a good time to be, closing and looking for a job. So that's when I opened my other company. I managed to get the company open 7 weeks before I had my second child.
Wow.
And that's how that's how family is important, and it's also a very motivating force.
So maternity leave was slightly short then, probably.
I had some complications during childbirth, and I had emergency surgery, and so oh goodness, she's going to have to be out at least 8 weeks now. Well, after 5 weeks, my business partner called, going, please, can you come back now? So we sped that up, and I hurried back.
So with partners, I've had business partners there's good and bad with business partners. Can you share some light if you're choosing a business partner? What kind of advice would you give a young startup?
The first time I found my business partner, I did a professional reference check on her to make sure that her values and mine, I'm very strong in ethics and all these other things, we're going to be the same. And she got, thumbs up marks. So we did that. But our personal values were not in sync. But I didn't know to ask that.
Yeah.
So after I sold to her, and she taught me a lot. She was older than I am. And so, having somebody, if you're new into the industry, if you're new into being a business owner, having a partner that knows more than you do is incredibly helpful. Now, I'm a strong-willed person, and I didn't like being told what to do.
Yeah.
And it took me 9 years to run her off. But I finally were like, okay, this is it. But finding this partner that has some knowledge or expertise that you don't have is great. But also doing reference checks or talking long enough to find out whether or not your business values and your personal values are in line. Because if you're going to be in a marriage, which that's what a business partner is, you want to do it for the long haul, you need to ask a lot of questions up front.
Well, there needs to be equal lifting. I've always, like you said, their strength needs to be different from your strength. And that's true because in my business situation, I'm more the sales side, and he was more the operations, which was beautiful. And it just worked out. He was a lot older. He's had businesses before. It was very encouraging to me. Both my business partners are on that side, but it's, my side of the story was always great relationships with my business partner. And when they exited, it was fine. But I know there's been just absolute train wrecks of relationships. And usually, like you said, it comes down to values and alignment. Maybe not equal lifting. It would, but
my first partner that I split with in the end, she was right. I was being stubborn and I wouldn't agree to, I wanted to have things my way. She wanted things her way, but I learned a lot from her, and we did have a ton of fun, especially our first 5 years of starting up. We really made a name for ourselves, and that was great. So we parted. We did not have a non-compete, so I was able to open, and so everything was fine there. When I opened ADEETA, I had a person that actually heard about me and called me, and he had a computer company, and I wanted to do IT staffing because I've been in clerical all my career, and it was boring me at the time. So we did IT. Well, I didn't do enough background checking on, I'm an abundance mentality. And the other person, so I'm thinking, hey, this way you can offer your customers more services. And he was concerned that his people might start getting less of his attention if he had spread to himself too thin. But he was an upstanding guy. To this day, he is our tech vendor. He's done a great job of growing his business and getting the right people on his team. And I learned a lot from him. I think he learned a lot from me, but we parted very amicably. Like I said, we're still business partners today as far as vendors. And then I had a second partner who, was a family person. She just had life changes taking place with her family and stuff. So we split, and that was amicable. And I have now just brought in a third partner, and this will be my last partner, because this is the child that was born 7 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Company, and he is now my succession plan. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, he's been with us 8 years now. So,
well, working with my 20-year-old, it would be, first of all, he's not going to get in this business, but it would be interesting to say the least.
Well, to that, my son, when he was 20, I have 2 sons. One is a couple years older than this one. They wanted nothing to do with a business. They wanted nothing to do with being in a square office. That's just not for them. So the oldest one is in the film and photography business, and he doesn't have to sit in a square office. The youngest one went away to school, didn't really like what he was pursuing, came home, decided wanted to be a chef, and he trained with the Brennan family and did a great job, but he realized, I'm never going to have a life.
Yeah.
So he left that, and I said, you can come work in my office and learn about a business, and then after a year, take off, go do whatever you want. At least you'll have some business experience. Well, he said he didn't want to leave after a year, and I was not really thrilled about that because, he wasn't part of my plan, and I wanted him to go pursue his own dream. But he stuck it out, and now he has really become quite aggressive in learning so much about running a business, and he can recruit. But he's now leading the staffing team, and we're still a very small company. Again, that was partially my doing. But it'll be interesting to see where he takes this because he's 33. So,
well, it generational businesses are amazing, and yeah, I'm sure he'll do just fine. Let's talk about technology for a second. I know a lot of staffing companies had to embrace tech, especially after COVID and stuff of that stuff. What are your thoughts on technology in our industry?
I think technology has helped us advance everything that we do except the human part.
Yeah,
and thank goodness. And I went to an ASA, American Staffing Association convention about 8 years ago. And in that convention, one of the things they said was, as technology continues to take over, part of the services that the staffing industry provides will be no longer needed. So the one thing that the machine can't do is take over the people side. So if you want to build in some safety net for your business, become more consultative in what you do. Well, that was the platform I've always built my company on. And so that's great, except, you've got to stay current on all technologies in order to communicate with both your client and your candidate, and always, try to be one step ahead of the competition.
I think if you bring in tech that works in the favor of both you and the client in communication, feedback, things like that, is where you win. And that's always been my thing is you can automate, and there's great automation tools, but you're never going to replace the phone call. You're never going to replace a text. It's clients want to stay with the relationship. And I don't ever want to replace that. But I was just curious of your take on tech and how you see it going in our industry.
Well, so I don't really know where it's going to go from here, except for depending on the size of your business. The really large temp staffing companies, the automation available is pretty intense. It's a big investment, but it's pretty intense, and it really does take care of a lot of minutia.
Yeah.
Really drain a professional recruiter, in contact management, right?
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, it's the phone call, it's the email, and I still bring it out of the closet every once in a while, the old handwritten note, snail mail. Yep. COVID made that a little difficult, though. Try to send Christmas cards last year when nobody was in an office that was a mess. But
well, it's been a pleasure talking to you and just getting to know you. And I'm glad someone introduced us to have you on our podcast. And I wish you and your son now success in the industry, especially in Louisiana. And it's very nice to meet you. Thank you for being on our podcast.
Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for having me.
The Staffing Stories podcast is brought to you by 3DIQ, founded by recruiters for recruiters. 3DIQ's industry-leading product suite complements your submission process in Bullhorn from start to finish and helps you deliver a cutting-edge customer experience. Triple your placements with our powerful resume submission platform, candidate marketing, and client portal. Visit 3diq.com/stories to learn more.